What's going on YouTube? It's okmall. In today's guide, I want to cover the Ranger build that I did recently. I want to cover the stats that I picked out, the gear that I went with, and the skills that I chose. And for this particular guide, I'm actually going to switch it up a little bit compared to when I actually unlocked them due to some of the things that I learned as I played along. So to start us off, let's first cover the attributes and what we went with. Now you're probably wondering yourself why there's willpower here, and I'll explain that in a second. But this is a very generic and basic sort of Ranger build. We went full perception for obvious reasons. It's extra accuracy, armor penetration, but primarily you're getting bonus vision and bonus range, which as an archer or a full archer style build, you're trying to snipe people before they even get a chance to get close to you. Now, I didn't put any skills into any melee skills out there outside of Seize the Initiative, which can be used on both range and melee skills. And I didn't deviate from this path because if you look, the range weapon tree, you can't see it now since everything is unlocked, but each and every single one of these skills requires a crap ton of perception. For example, Hunter's Mark takes level 13 before you can fully unlock that, on top of everything else here. And you can't just focus strictly on this skill tree. There's some other things that I think you need to focus on too. That's going to help this build overall. Now, as soon as I did hit the 30 in perception, I was kind of debating whether I wanted to go for more crit efficiency. So I could have got this up to, I think, 20% crit efficiency by getting strength to level 20. Or go for willpower. Now in this case, I chose willpower for the additional cooldown reduction, as well as ability energy cost reduction. Because there was times in my build where like I was running out of energy so dang fast. And obviously, the more energy you're spending by spamming your skills, the higher your fatigue and everything else. So it was really difficult to kind of keep my my sanity or my fatigue up the whole time while going through a dungeon. On top of that, there are times where you're waiting to use a distracting shot or a dash, but you can't because your cooldowns are too high or the energy cost is too much. So willpower was kind of the way to go for me, but again, it doesn't really matter for you guys. Like, you can make a choice on that one, whichever one makes more sense for you. But in terms of what I have here and what the overall loadout looks like, without really any buffs outside of optimism and vigor on right now in the Ancestor's Gaze, because we're currently Yorgrim. Main and weapon damage is 27. Weapon percent damage is 93, but that's because I have Botkins on, which decreases, open this up, decreases weapon damage by 20%. Otherwise, we'd be much higher for weapon damage. Main hand efficiency, we have armor penetration at 75%. Accuracy at 76 because of the Botkins. Crit chance is 40. Crit efficiency, even 93. So having an additional 20% if I went for strength doesn't really mean that much to us. We're still hitting like a truck. And it gets even higher with Hunter's Mark. Fumble chance, only because this weapon gave like 10% additional fumble. Otherwise, with this build, I didn't have to go to any points into agility and I would have had 0% fumble. For example, I have this crossbow on right now, 0 fumble. I had another bow with 0 fumble as well. Switching on back. There was a time with a different weapon here that I had a lot less energy cost. Obviously with this one, it bumped it up another 10%. Otherwise, it was really low. My cooldown duration, I got it down to 70%. And since I also went into sprint training, this actually decreased our cooldowns of our dash and distracting shot by an additional 30%, as well as 30% less energy. This here is so dang good. I found so much more use for this, but the only problem is you can only get it by level 22. That'll unlock this bottom category. Unfortunate for us, but hey, by level 22, at least you got it. Moving down, you'll see our bonus vision, our vision is 14 and our bonus range is 4. Current weapon status, energy resto, and healing efficiency there. Now this build here, it does not want to get hit. It's got very little protections, no block, and very little dodge. Very little resistances as well, 15, 8, and 9. Hunger resistance. A little bit of pain there, primarily from willpower. And then fatigue is at 47%, so we got some resistances against fatigue, which is good. Damage resistances, the same idea. We're actually taking more damage, so getting hit because we have these rings on is a pretty bad thing. Now, let's kind of cover before we get into the abilities, let's just cover the gear that we have. So again, I just happened to find this recently. Other than that, I was using a tier 5 bow. More or less the same specs, except it didn't have fumble. But it had the knockback, it had immobilization. I think I even had one that had bleed chance on it. It was doing about 24 weapon damage with 15 armor penetration and 8 range. That was plenty, because even with the bonus range, you can't hit any further than 14 anyway. So who cares if you have 10 range here plus the 4? It doesn't matter. I'm hitting max range, max distance the whole time anyway. Now moving on to the chest plate, we have the Scarhog. Now this one's really, really good, but the problem is finding it. I didn't find this until level 28, so I had to use another light chest plate for the time being. So I just grabbed something with a little cooldown reduction, which is the Aristocrat doublet or whatever it's called. Outside of that, best in slot, I would say, if we're looking for this particular loadout and build, would be anything with the crit or crit efficiency. Now, 40%, I think we talked about it right now. It's, 40% base crit chance is really, really high. And building into crit efficiency is kind of the way to go. Since we don't really have access to a high crit chance, crit efficiency glove, the tier 4 Tide gloves is kind of the way to go. Gives you 16% crit efficiency on top of negative 4% for fumble chance. Now again, since we're stacking that crit chance, crit efficiency, we're looking to get into these berserker rings, currently with crit chance, crit efficiency, crit chance, crit efficiency. What you do for the pendant is entirely up to you. I just went for cooldowns and a skill energy cost reduction, and it really helps us, allowing us to spam our skills. Now these boots, I actually had different boots for the longest time, and then I was like, my fatigue's racking up really, really fast. So I've switched it out, got the fancy boots. I think this is the way to go. This is going to be better for us overall, just because it's going to help us keep our energy level high, versus especially when you get peak performance. You don't want your energy levels to decrease because of your high fatigue, and then you're 2 skills later you're below the halfway threshold, losing out on the weapon damage and dodge and cooldown reduction here. The belt probably best in slot, I would say, more or less, just because the crit efficiency is not the highest crit efficiency that I've seen. On top of negative fumble, counter chance doesn't mean anything to us, but it's all good. A little bit of extra accuracy. And then this one here, again, probably best in slot because of the crit chance, crit efficiency. Otherwise, it's fine. I got super lucky with this one here, this decorated quiver. It gave us negative 7.5 energy cost, which is awesome. I would say best in slot just because of that skill energy cost. If you get lucky and find it. If you don't, probably grab one of the soldier's quivers. And if you're using a siege crossbow, same thing, leather bolt quiver with 3 stacks is probably going to be your go-to. As far as arrows are concerned, usually I just roll around with bodkins for the most or the majority of the playthrough. At a certain point, it didn't really matter what I had, whether it was oops, let me open this up. Whether it was leaf shapes or broadheads, at a certain point, we had enough accuracy with taking aim that no matter what weapon or what arrows we used, it was going to hit. So yeah, you see I have a mixture of everything. It doesn't really matter. I don't care what it is, as long as it's firing, right? Let's go ahead and talk about the abilities real quick. I'm just going to kind of briefly cover this, and then I'm going to show a little screenshot of the abilities as a whole. So, like I mentioned, we went full Ranger, right? That's the entire build. We keep on going down the line here. We have Warfare with Seize the Initiative, Opportune Moment, Warcry, and Intimidation. Now, Opportune Moment is something I probably should have got much earlier in my run to help me recover my energy. I think this one had way more use than Push the Falling. Push the Falling required us to have a bleed, daze, stun, stagger, confuse, or immobilize target before we recover energy, whereas this one just required us to crit. That's it. And we crit a lot more than we immobilized, right? So this one had a lot more play. I should have gotten it a lot earlier. That would have helped me keep my energy levels much higher in certain encounters that I had throughout the playthrough. Warcry got super early in the game just so I could scream at enemies, increase our weapon damage, our crit chance, crit efficiency. On top of, if we get the enemies confused, it allows us to shoot off even more arrows while they're just wandering around aimlessly. Intimidation I liked a lot as well, because successful shots can apply the target with negative 5% crit avoidance, right? So if they can't avoid your crit, you're guaranteed to crit more. So it almost like, if you think about it, if you have 40% crit and you take away 5% of their crit avoidance, it's like having 45% additional crit chance. Now that stacks up to 5 times. Whether or not they actually take 5 hits before they die is completely another story, but it's still nice to have. I kind of want to talk about Seize the Initiative real quick. I found it's good, don't get me wrong, but what I found when I used this is I used it very little, right? I got it specifically for the troll fight, so that way I can carry a spear in my offhand, and every time the troll went to regenerate its HP, I would just use Seize the Initiative with my spear to interrupt its healing ability, which makes the fight a lot easier. But I think if you go to the troll a little later down the road, you might not need to worry about this, because you're going to hit them so hard with, you know, your arrows or your crossbows. It's just going to be, who cares, right? Step in, interrupt them with your melee attacks, go back to shooting with your arrows. But whatever, I probably could have used something different. It's just what it is. Moving on, we have athletics. Now this is where I think a really important skill tree, specifically for sprint training and peak performance. It really helps me out, in my opinion, for my build, especially sprint training, so you can utilize distracting shot way more often, as well as dash. And having these skills cost less energy and have more range is immense. Gets you out of the way from other enemies coming in at you, especially ones that have charge skills like a mage hunter or any dueling one-handed sword users, right? They usually have 2 dashes. They have a dash and a 4-tile charge with onrush. That's a lot. The mage hunter especially. If you can kill him before he gets to you, or use distracting shot and dash to get away from those guys, very, very good stuff to have. And obviously these other skills also help out. So if we do get somebody dazed, stunned, whatever, it's going to increase accuracy, decrease fumble, and increase crit chance. This one's obviously for energy regen. Mighty Kick didn't really do much for us, but to that regard, not this time. And Sudden Lunge don't really mean much to us if we're not going to do anything in melee. Like I said, this is all about range, not about melee. Elusiveness was there if you needed a no shit button, but for the most part, that's fine too. Underneath Armored Combat, I ended up just getting a hard target just for, I think for me, it was through the middle of the game. Though, in hindsight, I mean, I think now with all, looking back at it, so long as we can hit the enemies and kill them before they get to us, I really didn't need this as much. This is kind of like a later game decision. Self-repair, don't really need it. If we're not getting hit, we're not needing to repair our own gear. But if you wanted to make a little extra cash and use this just to help, get more fragments to repair higher end gear to make more money, that's fine too. Underneath survival, I only got these 4. We got resourcefulness just because we wanted to skin more. Same thing with Huntmaster, just because we wanted to skin more. Plus vigor grants us 4% with crit chance, negative 5 fumble. This one was fatigue resistance, experience to vigor, negative fumble to vigor, plus just hearing the enemies and hearing enemies in general to know their location was amazing to have. So I got this a lot pretty early in the game. Ever Vigilant was, what was this one for? I think the only reason I got this also grants them negative 1 crit chance efficiency. I think I just got this. I think I got this just because of the vigor. So when we kill an enemy, we restore 20% turns towards vigor. So vigor lasts a little bit longer. Now let's look at the abilities as a whole, and I can kind of cover what to do between levels 1 through 10, 11 through 16, and 17 through 22. With a few variances in there. You can do whatever you want, but for the most part, what I did or what I wanted or should have done. Okay, here's an overview of all the skills that I got, and what I would probably recommend getting at what levels. Now, this isn't an exact replica of the skills that I got when I got them. As you can tell, I didn't even pick up Seize the Initiative this time around, but you could. Again, I got it specifically for the troll fight and didn't really use it much throughout the entire game. So if your goal is to fight the troll and you want to have a little bit of easier time, sure, pick up Seize the Initiative and you can weasel that in somewhere. The one thing I would say that is non-negotiable would be getting the cyan colored ones, 17 through 22. Keep that as it is. That way you can get yourself, by the time you hit level 22, you're going to unlock these two. You're basically going to hold your skill points by the time you get here. But yeah, you definitely want to get these two unlocked at level 22. You get that sprint training and get that peak performance. Now at level 1, I always take, if I'm doing a full ranger, I'm going to take taking aim, I'm going to take distracting shot. So those are the first two skills that I'm typically going to be getting. At level 2, I chose to go ahead and get Warcry. Now, depending on who you're playing, you might not have access to Warcry. In this particular playthrough, I went with Yorgrim, and I had to go all the way down to Manshire to buy the athletics book just so I can unlock these two skills. So depending on who you start with, you might not be able to get Warcry right off the bat. You might not be able to get ranged weapons unlocked right off the bat. You might have to take a trip. You might have to hold on to some skill points. But this is kind of utilizing Yorgrim as an example. So again, I walked all the way down to Manshire to buy the ranged treaties, and he already had Warfare unlocked, so I was able to get that Warcry skill. But if you start with Derwin, I don't believe Derwin starts with anything in Warfare. If you start off with Velmir, that's what you wanted to do, I don't know why. But if you start off with Velmir, he does have ranged Warfare as well as athletics. Okay. Moving on to level 3, I just went ahead and get this Dexterity. That way, if enemies do get too close to us, we can swap to our offhand without skipping a turn and just do a little bit of extra damage. Level 4 is when we can get this unlocked down here. And in fact, both of these skills, the skinning skill and Pathfinder, both unlock at the exact same time. So if you're focusing only on perception, both of these skills will unlock, I think, after 3 points placed into perception, these will unlock. So if you want to unlock this or prioritize this over other skills, let's say you don't want dexterity, you actually want to go into here, I think you can get, I think this is 3 points invested. Yeah, that'll be level 4. They unlock at level 4. Here we go. So you can get Pathfinder, and if you want to go to resourcefulness here, you can get that right after. This is entirely up to you. This is where it's kind of getting a little gray area. Like, you don't have to unlock these skills in this particular order. What I would say is 9 and 10, definitely try to get Dash unlocked as soon as possible. I would say it's a non-negotiable. Grab those up as soon as you can. So 9 and 10, grab up Dash. As far as the other skills I have pointed out here, how you do that, what level you do that, that's up to you, right? If you want to do skinning, go for it. Unlock this skill a little early. Go do some skinning, right? Otherwise, just try to do what I'm doing here. That way you can get the stance for suppression. You can get startling volley. So if you're using a crossbow, this will help you reload your crossbow. And if you're using a bow, this helps you shoot twice right off the bat. Now moving on to levels 11 through 16. Again, how you do this is still up to you. You might get opportune moment earlier. Maybe you'll skip over one of these other skills here that I between the 1 through 10 and instead get opportune moment because you're starting to crit more. You want more energy back. That's fine. You can do that. I just put it at level 11 because I was thinking to myself, well, suppression and startling volley are nice skills to have when doing damage to the enemies. Obviously, skinning, you could opt to not do skinning, maybe do opportune moment, swap some skills around. Up to you on how you do this. This is just kind of a thought process that I have. But yeah, get opportune moment because we are going to start needing additional energy for the stronger enemies that we're going to be starting to face. And we're going to be spending a lot of energy. So getting that energy back is nice. Now at level 12, you're going to want to get anticipation 100% because that's going to allow you to get the best skill on the range weapon tree. And that's going to be Hunter's Mark. It unlocks at level 13 according to my math. Hopefully I'm right. So level 13 and 12 and 13 definitely got to hit this up 100%. So I'm going to say you can sleep on anticipation until level 12. That's fine. But 12 and 13, 100% right here. 14 and 15 and 16, I just kind of threw these in the mix because at this point it's completely, again, it's up in the air on how you want to do these skills. But looking at what I have unlocked currently, I mean, there's some wiggle room. Again, I would still say 17 through 22, go this route because these are two really, really important skills. But again, 15, 16, 14, right? What these skills do, I'll just kind of go over it. So this one here, this is spot weakness. It grants +5 armor penetration to taking aim. And while using taking aim, apply all targets within vision -5 physical resistance for 4 turns. It can stack twice. And then this is long shot. So by the time you get long shot, you have a lot, and I mean quite a bit, of vision and bonus range already. So if you can take or shoot at an enemy who doesn't already know you're there, it's going to double the distance related bonuses, which is in this case every single tile of distance is additional weapon damage, additional armor penetration, and additional body part damage, right? Which is pretty cool. So again, if you go this route, under the warfare one, I already covered it, intimidation. And again, Hunter's Mark, we talked about it. It's awesome, right? It's activate Thrill the Hunt. That's additional body part damage, crit chance, and crit efficiency. Can stack up, I think, to 4 stacks, which is amazing. On top of that, it applies the enemies with less bleed, less move, and less control resistance. Now, I didn't really cover the other skills that I have on the list here, mainly because by level 22, you should be fine and be able to like knock out tier 5 dungeons. So I'll briefly cover these other skills and what they do. So if we look here, we have precision. This will grant a 5% additional accuracy to the ability tree's attack skills. And while affected by taking aim, hitting targets with shots will also reduce the ability tree's cooldowns by 1 and grant +4 weapon damage for 5 turns. Now this is lovely, especially when you're looking at distracting shot having a 7-round cooldown. So if you distracting shot, you got 7-round cooldown, and then if you were to take aim and then shoot somebody, that's going to decrease that distracting shot's cooldown even more. So you can be able to use distracting shot another time without having to wait a full 7 turns. Now that can stack as well. The 4% weapon damage can stack up to 4 times, which is pretty cool, and it can trigger twice if when using a crossbow. This is headshot. Headshot's pretty nice. If you can kill somebody with headshot, it'll also reuse or use up taking aim for the next attack, and also replenish 40% of your maximum energy, which is really nice. Also instantly reloads crossbow too. Shoot to kill is another really strong skill. So I would probably say that you can unlock this whenever you see fit. If we're looking at the overall, I still would say probably wait. I mean, you could probably hold off and get this peak performance until level 23, and maybe put a skill point into this one here, and then get your sprint training at 22. So, but again, some of these skills can just be moved around as you see fit. But back to shoot to kill, it grants all shots 15% crit efficiency, 15% body part damage, and 5% armor penetration for each missing 20% of the target's health. So it's a lot more effective for those tankier enemies to allow you to deal even more damage. It'll grant all shots plus 3% crit chance for each degree of injury, as well as each net, web, stagger, immobilization affecting the target. And then lastly is upper hand. Says while affected by suppression, this will grant you an extra stack of Thrill the Hunt when using Hunter's Mark. Now you could probably again squeeze this in a little bit earlier, up to you and how you do this, but it's also a strong one just because of the extra stacking of Hunter's Mark being pretty useful, right? At the end of each turn, grants an extra stack of suppression for each target affected by Hunter's Mark within vision. And then grants melee strikes. So if you are doing like some melee sort of hybrid build, this is for a different concept, but can grant melee strikes against targets affected by Hunter's Mark 20% additional weapon damage and 5% additional crit. So you could potentially just go straight down the line here and maybe get some skills into daggers or dual wielding daggers, and try to get even more crit efficiency on that, which would be pretty neat actually. So that kind of covers the overall build. I know it's not a definite one way is the right way, and that's what made this kind of difficult to make a guide for. Is I'm looking back at it in retrospect, looking at some of the things that I could have done differently to make this a little bit better, and some of the things that I was running into issues with, which usually was just energy gain and energy usage, fatigue racking up, Those are a lot of the things that I was fighting throughout the entire playthrough. And once I got the certain gear that helped me decrease my fatigue, increase the energy gain that I'm getting from my skills, it changed everything. I also want to cover a couple other things too. When it comes to the early game, when you do not have any sort of attacking skills, you're doing all of your damage through your ranged weapon, especially when you're doing it through a bow specifically. Bows don't do very good when attacking enemies that get close to you. A crossbow, on the other hand, if somebody gets close enough to you, you can still blast them right in the face, and it typically hits. A bow, on the other hand, typically goes over their head. So even with taking aim, it's not always guaranteed to hit. So what I would suggest doing, and what I did through probably levels 1 through 10 in most of my dungeons, is using the shout mechanic or war cry. I don't typically use war cry until they're in my range and they obviously know that I'm there, but the actual shout command. So obviously right clicking your character, you can shout, or as chat has always yelled at me for, you can take this and put this on your hotbar. This is a command for shout, which does the exact same thing as actually hitting shout here. Now shout is I think it's 12 range cooldown, or 12 range, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here, it's easier if I count this out this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So right there, if they're within the 12 tiles away, they will come to me. They will hear me shouting. So you can use that to your advantage. So right here, we have these two guys. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I go back 2 slots. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go back 3. And then I'm going to shout because it's not going to work, right? Go up 1. Count it out again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That's not going to work. Yeah. They were 11 away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They'll both hear it this time. See? So you can use that in dungeons early on to hopefully pull one enemy at a time. Now I'm going to run away and show you another trick. So if there's 2 enemies side by side like that and you don't want to pull both of them, the other thing you can do, so you see how there's these 2 dudes? If you want to pull one guy by himself, what you can do is you can aim about 2 tiles away typically, shoot an arrow. What? Sometimes it works. Oh, they were still looking for me, I think. So this he's a ranger. His AI is a little buggy, but you can shoot and only get his attention. See how he's checking like what's going on over here. And once you pull him away from the other guy, you can count out enough tiles, shout, get his attention by himself. And that helps you get through the early game really, really conveniently and without having to take on multiple enemies at once. Because one of the things that sucked is just trying to, kill 2 people at the same time, because your damage in the early game isn't enough to kill these guys before they get to you typically. So you're definitely going to want to try to fight one at a time. Otherwise, just shoot away. I could probably kill this guy with 1 headshot, honestly. 136. 136. Then headshot basically gave me taking aim all over again, which is nice. This guy saw the dead body. So this is the people that you want to watch out for. He's already used dash once, apparently. But he has onrush too. So usually just comes down to shooting them in the face until they're dead, basically. I think that about covers it. I'll leave a link in the description that showcases this build in tier 5 dungeons. So if you guys want to see this build in action, just look down in the description, click the link, and then watch the video. So I hope you all found this guide useful, and if you did, please like, comment, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and family, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye!